Hello everyone and welcome to this episode in the entrepreneurship series of the JA Malta Podcast. Today we'll be talking about crowdfunding and how do entrepreneurs use crowdfunding for their new upcoming businesses. Today I have Giselle from ZAAR Crowdfunding. But before starting this conversation, I'd like to thank our partners, the Family Business Office, the Malta Business Registry and the Commerce Department. So Giselle, tell us a bit about you. Introduce yourself, please.
Hey. Hi, thank you for having me here, first of all. So my name is Giselle and I am the manager at ZAAR Crowdfunding Malta and the manager of FPEI, which is the Foundation for the Promotion of Entrepreneurial Initiatives. And the foundation is basically the owner of ZAAR, which is its flagship project.
Okay, so tell us a bit about ZAAR. What is ZAAR and what's crowdfunding? How do they join together?
Okay, so ZAAR is in its basic form a crowdfunding platform. It's obviously online, as all crowdfunding platforms are, and it is Malta's only reward-based crowdfunding platform. It's been around for 10 years now, and it is essentially a place where entrepreneurs, individuals, organizations can raise funds for their projects, their ideas, and it's, as I said before, it's all done online.
Okay, so you mentioned the term there, reward-based crowdfunding. Tell us a bit more about that.
Okay, so reward-based crowdfunding effectively is where you are raising funds, you're raising money for your project, but the people who are actually backing you, who are giving you the money, are not investors. They're not going to get their money back. What they're going to get is what we call a non-financial reward, meaning it's either the product that you're going to eventually be producing, or perhaps it's a service, or even something related to your project, your campaign, as we call it in crowdfunding. So, for example, if you're going to crowdfund because you want to put up a play, the reward would be a ticket to see the play.
Okay, so crowdfunding is used by businesses to raise funds, raise capital for their operations, correct?
Yes.
And the reward, therefore, is a sale? Is it considered as me selling my products, my services through a campaign?
It could be seen as a pre-sales tool, yes. Because, yes, effectively, if, for example, if your business is going to be creating, I don't know, so some new gadget, for example, and the gadget, you obviously need the capital before you actually, before you create it. And this gadget is going to be available in 2 years' time. Anybody who would have backed you in the campaign and the reward is the gadget, you are effectively our first customers.
Yeah. So I don't need actually the gadget to be there already. It can be something I'm still developing, right?
Absolutely. No, you don't need the gadget to be there already. In fact, it's very often a crowdfunding campaign is done so that you can actually produce this gadget. There are different stages, so sometimes you could have already produced a pilot, of it.
Prototype.
A prototype, exactly. So you might be on version 2 by this time, but it doesn't need to already be there.
Yeah. And we're mentioning campaign, crowdfunding campaign, you do a campaign. What's in a campaign for reward-based crowdfunding? Okay,
so when we talk about a campaign, it's just a term basically, but what it is it's your project on a crowdfunding platform, whatever crowdfunding platform it is. Obviously here we're talking about ZAAR. So for example, if you had to go onto the ZAAR website, you would find different campaigns, each one by a different person or entity, and each one for a different cause, a different reason. It's a landing page for this project. On it, you will find all the information about the project, how much money they're looking to raise, perhaps something about the people behind the project, the idea, what sparked it, very often a timeline. All the information is what we refer to as a campaign.
Okay. So then, obviously, my mission is then, once I set up this campaign on your platform or any platform, it's purely marketing. I just need to reach out to as many people, the crowd, to actually fund. What what type of businesses or at what stage should businesses use reward-based crowdfunding? So what works or what type of business doesn't really work with it?
Okay, so yes, first of all, it is very, very much so a marketing campaign then.
Okay.
Reward-based crowdfunding is ideal for early startups,
Okay.
for people who are still seeking market validation, who perhaps still need to have their first prototype, who kind of just have an idea, but it might not be fully developed yet. The reason for this is that, especially locally, the sort of the money behind it, as in the amount that you're likely to raise, is still on the small end. So it's still sort of for the start.
So what kind of amounts are we talking about? What could be a feasible amount I could raise?
I mean, really, this is very much an EU average, but we're typically looking at about 10K as an average. Sometimes it's less. If you have a fantastic marketing campaign and a really good network, it could be more. Very often the amount is very related to the person or the company behind it.
So what things should I have? What are the must-haves for me to be successful in raising funds through reward-based crowdfunding?
You have to have a very clear idea of what it is that you want to raise. You need to have a very clear marketing vision and a marketing campaign. This isn't a, one day to the next kind of idea. Oh, I'm going to raise funds. Let me do it on crowdfunding. There has to be planning done beforehand. There has to be some kind of, ideally, for example, there's a teaser campaign, that's something that's coming up. And then you would complement this with obviously more information and artwork. And then once the campaign goes live, people are already excited about it. So then once the campaign is live, you've already hooked people, and then they can participate and be part of the project, of the campaign. So there needs to be planning done beforehand.
And from the people giving the money perspective, what kind of safeguards are there? What kind of checks are usually done by platforms on these projects? What kind of conditions or fallbacks, safeguards do they have that their money is being used properly and that they eventually will get the reward? So anything that on that front?
So due diligence is done on the part of obviously the person running the campaign to make sure that they're in good standing and sort of their reputation is sound. From the part of the backers, I mean, with any whenever you're sort of giving money, there's always an element of risk, but then this is the beauty of reward-based, that the amounts that you would be paying are typically low. We always tell the campaign owner that they need to keep in contact with all the backers and keep them updated as to the timeline of the campaign, especially once the campaign is over. It's up to the campaign owner at the end of the day to obviously provide the rewards, or to at least let the backers know what is happening with their money.
And do you see that there's a culture in Malta that's growing in terms of backing businesses or looking at crowdfunding in a way of giving money for a product? Of course, I'm getting something back, but is it seen as something I'm helping young people or new entrepreneurs in starting a business? Is that their culture still?
Well, we're hoping that it will grow further. It's still in its infancy, I would say, because 10 years is not a long time in business, so I would say it's still a nascent sort of business in itself, crowdfunding in Malta. So we hope that obviously it continues to grow, and obviously the more businesses and entities that take it up and try it out, we're hoping that obviously there's a knock-on effect that success breeds success.
I mean, the audience and listeners could go on ZAAR and check out the campaigns, but could you give us maybe one or two success stories or campaigns that you really liked and actually managed to achieve and start off?
Yeah, we actually had a great one this year in 2025, which was an energy drink, but a healthy energy drink. Basically, the person behind it has a background in like sciences anyway, so the person sort of already has that knowledge from a personal perspective. But once they discovered that they had ADHD, they wanted to create something that would help themselves and obviously people with this condition. So they created this energy drink, and thanks to the crowdfunding campaign, but also thanks to the efforts of the person by reaching out to as many people as they knew, including companies, not just individuals. I mean, they shot through the roof, basically, from, we say a successful campaign has to hit 100% goal.
100% is the amount I want to raise.
Exactly.
Okay?
So if you're looking to raise 5K, 100% is 5K. This campaign reached something like 350%.
Wow. Okay.
And
what do you think was the success? Why did it grow so much? What worked in this specific campaign?
It was the person behind it. The person really reached out, did all the work that is necessary. They didn't just sort of say, oh, it's okay, the campaign is running online, it will run itself. It doesn't work like that. There has to be the personal impact, the actual reaching out to people and saying, I am running this campaign, please support me.
So having a good network certainly helps. And from the platform perspective, what would you say is the ratio between my work as a campaigner to do all the work and the platform and its network? Sort of, I guess they both contribute.
Yes, they definitely both contribute. As a platform, we obviously promote the campaigns on our social channels, through our online newsletter. We also offer a press release that goes out to the local media, and that's written by a third-party agency. Okay. So we do offer different ways of promotion support. But ultimately, I always say that the project owner, the campaign owner, is the person with the passion, the person with the dream, and no one can explain your dream as well as you can.
Perfect. One last word of advice, Giselle. If you had to, give one advice to someone who's looking into crowdfunding or is looking at different options, grants, whatever, to raise 10K, what advice would you give me to help me or convince me to look into crowdfunding?
I would say do your homework first. Don't just jump into it. Do the necessary work beforehand. Look into what other campaigns have done, both locally and even on foreign platforms, and sort of pick their ideas, see obviously what has worked, and use it. Understand the story behind your project, because ultimately, it's all about the story. You have to sort of answer the question, why should someone give me their money? Yep. So there has to be a compelling reason. Now, you might either have such a fantastic product that it's the first of its kind, and I want to be an initial owner of it. Yep. Or your story has to have something that is going to really hook me. So that storytelling element is very important in reward-based. Very much so. Thank you, Giselle, for your time. I encourage all the listeners to check out the ZAAR platform, the ZAAR website, and get in touch, should you, from what we've heard. If you're looking to raise funds, initial funds for your early startup, something around 5K, 10K to get you going, but also, as Giselle was mentioning, as a way of idea validation, because you're actually attracting your first customers on board. So thank you, Giselle, for this short chat. Thank you. We look forward to hearing more success stories on your platform. In the second part, we'll have Toke Portal with us, and we will be discussing another type of crowdfunding with them, which is the equity and loan based. So keep listening. Welcome to part 2 of this episode. We're talking about crowdfunding. Earlier, we discussed reward-based and donation-based crowdfunding. Now we have a new guest. We have Nora Zeles from
Toke Portal, where we'll be talking about equity crowdfunding and loan-based crowdfunding. We'll be discussing what's the difference and how these can be used by startups and entrepreneurs. So before kicking off the discussion, Nora, could you please tell us something about you?
Thank you very much for having me here. Ever since I know my madam in capital markets, I used to start to work for the Budapest Stock Exchange when it was relaunched after the communist regime, and then I got into capital markets. At the Budapest Stock Exchange, we launched derivatives trading at a later point of time, which I was a project leader, which no one really believed in and no one really wanted to, but we knew that the time will come, and now it was really a success story. And then I went to brokerage myself. I was a floor broker at that time when it was not fully electronic, and then went to asset management. But what I always missed is the service that we should provide, financial service for early phase startups.
Okay.
In order to make them eligible for later IPO. So I was always shocked why we never provided that service, and then think that big companies are simply born like whatever by pushing the button, and then I would then beg to be introduced to the stock exchange. So I was always looking for something that helps young companies and entrepreneurs on the alternative finance way
And that's how Toke Portal, I guess.
And that's exactly. And then when the Jobs Act in the US was passed, it was in 2012, so quite a long time ago from today. But then I thought it's time to act, but it was a very slow process until the EU was also started to prepare the ECSPR regulation. So I used to attend those working groups and international gatherings that discussed the preparation of that regulation. That was then finally passed in 2020. And then until then I worked at in the other segments as a full-time job, and then I thought, let's start to prepare the crowdfunding service, and then it was incorporated first in Budapest, but then we chose, because due to the fact that the ECSPR allows every company in the EU member states to relocate and to apply for a license for international expansion from another member state. We did our homework and some research, and we found that Malta could be the best place to relocate and to actually launch the international activity.
As mentioned, we had ZAAR before, the Malta first reward-based crowdfunding platform, and now Toke Portal, you are the first equity-based crowdfunding portal. You chose to come to Malta due to the regulation, the EU regulation that enabled you to come here and use this country as a platform for you to offer new types of fundraising, which is the equity crowdfunding. It's important we mention that this is licensed. It also has its own regulations. So tell us a bit about what's the difference between reward-based crowdfunding and the investment, because now we're talking purely as investment. How does equity crowdfunding work?
The wonderful thing about crowdfunding is that it fits to all sizes. It means that idea phase companies can go to donation-based crowdfunding. Even for business ideas, they can raise funds. In Malta, there's no such service, but there are international ones, like, for example, GoFundMe. You could find business ideas where talented entrepreneurs can pitch the crowd digitally, online, and ask for their donation, because in exchange for that donation, they don't provide anything. Okay. So you just would believe in them. And
so that would be even earlier than
that was even earlier, yeah. And then when the product is there, or in an MVP or pilot phase, they can come to ZAAR and ask for pre-financing. Actually, yes. The product, Giselle for sure went into details. That in turn of that money, the prospect, the backer gets the reward. Yeah. And then equity crowdfunding can come into play when it's not anymore about financing that particular product or project, but financing the company that would then sustainably grow the business to produce the product or the service on the long term.
Yeah, so now the people actually being part of the campaign, they're not just backing a project, they are pure investors. Right?
Yes.
They are
They
shareholders
will be
of
shareholders
the
of that particular company, and therefore this is where regulation comes into play. Because as long as you get the product that you paid for, then there's no so-called
it's
asymmetry in
non-financial.
the. It's not financial, and it doesn't imply risks. Of course, there's risk involved, included when the entrepreneur does not keep to this promise or just simply fails to deliver the product. That happens. But if in case of equity crowdfunding, there's a huge so-called information asymmetry between the shareholder and the founder of the company, and therefore the regulator takes up the role to represent investors' rights.
So I'm interested to invest in startups. If I go on Toke Portal, what will I see, and what typical information is included in these campaigns?
Yes, you would see the campaign pages, which include the pitch decks and the video, the pitch video. That's usually the most popular to watch, 3, 4, 5 minute videos where the founder pitches actually what he asks the money for, what he would spend it for, which stage he and his company or her company is, what they would then provide, and why it's appealing and sexy for the investors, and then would project the financial numbers for at least 5 years. And this documentation is completely reviewed by us before it goes live on the platform. And the legal binding document is the so-called KIIS, or Key Investor Information Sheet, best known as a term sheet, but the regulation calls it KIIS. This is the document that regulates the investors' rights, what they would then get in exchange for the capital that would provide. And if the investor likes all these materials, he can go to the forum page, can raise questions, can enter webinars that are always announced through our newsletters and posts, etc. Can raise questions, should raise questions, and then if everything is okay, he can push the invest button. So you would then invest by pushing the button. That creates then a declaration where you oblige yourself to pay for the shares. That's the investment transaction. This is revocable. That's very interesting in crowdfunding. And if you compare it to real IPOs, but crowdfunding is an IPO because it is a public offering, actually, in this regulated by ECSPR. In the case of IPOs, these are non-revocable.
Okay, so I can.
Intentions.
It's like
you
any
can
other online purchase. I have
exactly.
time to
it's an online
claim
purchase.
it back. So this information, if I'm an entrepreneur and I'm raising funds now and looking for investment, what kind of support do I get from Toke Portal or other platforms? Do I need to prepare all the documentation myself? Is there support?
Sure.
What kind of
help?
help
We try to
are you
really be very good at this service. So this is our competitive edge. I believe that we do a lot more for the entrepreneurs than large platforms do, because we are still relatively small. We have onboarded 10,000 investors and keep on onboarding even a lot more, and hopefully many more from Malta. So what we do is that to really provide the best and tailor-made service for that particular entrepreneur. We review the current documentation for sure that the entrepreneur in that phase, when it already thinks to himself that he is eligible for investment, must have some documents. Typically, financial plan depends on it varies a lot. Yes, or if it had an angel investor or any other investors on board, then he would then be probably more prepared. But we do provide service for the very early phase entrepreneur in case it looks that it's crowdfundable. So it's not the idea phase. He must have a product on the market, even if it doesn't sell yet a huge quantities, but it has been, the proof of concept must be valid. But as I learned from Jeff Lynn, who was the founder of Seeders, one of the largest platforms in Europe, now called Republic, as they were bought out by the US company, he told me that the what is eligible for crowdfunding is an entrepreneur who has something. That's the idea. The something is the best thing if it has a product already in the market, or at least a large network and followers, because crowdfunding is to unlock the potential of the networks. That's that I assume your next question would be what we would advise to entrepreneurs: build your network, be visible, be online, very active. The online traction is very important in crowdfunding, much more important than in other types of venture capital investments like angel funding or VC funding. They don't so much care about the online visibility. Here, the better the visibility, the higher the chance. Absolutely, that's scientifically proven. And we have all the numbers, how much spending on social media, not too much, is required. But so he must be prepared for pitching online. I also call it camera readiness. It means that you're really able to pitch the crowd through the camera, smile at the webcam, because it's all digital, but not all funders are very good at it. So we help them a lot. Takes about 20 to 50 hours to prepare. In general, the documentation we review, it's called scoring, and if it's then properly good enough to be launched, then the campaign will go live on the platform.
Okay. So even from an investor point of view, I know there's an element of due diligence that's happening from the platform, so a certain level
regulated
of confidence that is increased. You're mentioning the network, that I as an entrepreneur need to build a network. So how much would you say in equity crowdfunding, how much would you say the audience is brought by the platform itself?
Yes.
And how much of it is brought by the entrepreneur himself?
Yeah, great question.
So
thank you very much.
What combination do you see there?
Yes, we believe that a few thousands of active followers shall be enough. So it's not too huge. You don't have to have millions or hundreds of thousands. So that can easily be reached organically if the founder and the funding team takes it really seriously and keeps on posting whatever, twice, 3 times a week maximum, and they all like, share, invite their network, their own personal network to follow the company's social media, then it can really be easily reached. And then by boosting it, let's say calculate with the cost of 1 or maximum 2,000 euros. Honestly, we don't advise them to spend more on that, to have that budget. But social media is mathematics, so you don't necessarily have to spend it. If it's very successful, then it...
What kind of amounts, what kind of money can be raised on equity crowdfunding platforms?
We are good and up at, for the time being, for 500,000.
Okay.
So I would call it funding capacity. That's based on the activity of our current investor base. But what your second part of your former question was very appealing, and I would like to get back to that for a second. Then we address our own community that exists of this 10,000, what I've said. We would provide all the numbers to the potential funders so that they can really check it out, how it works. And how I call it, that we should unite both audiences in the very beginning of the campaign when it goes live. It first in the so-called pre-launch or pre-registration phase, when the campaign does not yet accept investments, just it is announced. If you now go on tokeportal.com, you would see a few such pre-registration campaigns. Then this pre-registration landing page is to attract as much traffic as possible and make visitors pre-register for that campaign, and that creates actually just a special mailing list which only the campaign owner would communicate the upcoming webinars, the upcoming news, etc. And so this online marketing operation aims at creating traffic on this site.
Hype on the site.
And we believe that about a weekly 1,000 to 2,000 visits shall already be good enough to attract investors. So using the industry conversion rates. So
if I'm trying to raise 500,000, 1 million, one of the issues that people bring up, or criticism of crowdfunding, of equity crowdfunding, is that, with 500,000, with small investments from a lot of people, you'll end up with a lot of investors, of shareholders. And a startup has to deal with that. So how is this handled?
That's the basic fear. That's what I keep on hearing. ever since we started with that, also from yet unexperienced investors and founders, because as the matter of fact, and there is research behind that, is huge research, because that's an online activity, so researchers from all over the world love to research crowdfunding. Honestly, it fills up hundreds, thousands of articles prove that the crowd investor is in general very patient, and it is aware that it's an early phase company. It would take at least 5 to 10 years, not 5 to 10 months, but years, to really materialize that projected growth that it sort of promises to the crowd. So that's in general. De facto, what we have raised until today, 5 million euros, something like that, in 20 some startups. We are also a startup ourselves. However, this is an experience that my international peers also share, that I usually meet. We exchange these experiences. Very rarely a crowd investor thinks that now it's my company, I can knock on the door and anytime I can request whatever services. No, this profile of investors is really definitely
tends to stay in the background and
yes,
wait,
and maybe has proposals and maybe adds value to the company.
They could be customers as well.
They could, absolutely. So thank you very much for mentioning this. The crowdfunding's miracle is in this conversion. That
from a customer to an investor.
Exactly.
So thanks for this, Nora, for this conversation and highlighting some interesting facts about equity crowdfunding. So my last question was going to be, what's next for Toke Portal? So you're setting up now in Malta. You chose Malta as your base. You're setting up. So what should our new entrepreneurs expect from Toke Portal, and how do they get in touch?
Thank you very much. Reach out very easily. hello.tokeportal.com. I mean, yes, the addresses are available on the website, and we will immediately reply and review your prospect campaign. We definitely want to develop business here in Malta. I think there are very good opportunities, and because we are small and Malta is relatively small, I mean, in global terms, in terms of the number of SMEs, etc., and they are very good and very agile. I'm really happy to have experienced very good talks with, for example, the Malta Chamber of SMEs, Malta Venture Capital, Malta Enterprise. They are all open and interested, and up to a certain point, they also realize that there's a lot to do here in the SME sector to provide a further funding avenue, and that's crowdfunding, not additionally to banking and to existing other financing methods and grants. This type of funding validates the concept of the entrepreneur very, very well. So, and therefore, it's very useful for them to add it to the palette of financial services. So we are absolutely active on building up partnerships and to create a pipeline of future campaign owners.
Perfect. So today we discussed crowdfunding, a new way or a different way than the traditional fundraising that startups can use. We started off with donation-based and reward-based for some small initial funding, and then we moved on to equity crowdfunding, where startups and entrepreneurs can raise 1 million, 500,000, or even more. So with another portal on equity crowdfunding, the first one in Malta, joining, it's interesting times, new types of investing and financing for startups is kicking off. So this is certainly an interesting time to be part of it. Thank you, Nora. Thank you, Giselle, as well, for their time in joining us in this episode today. I thank you, the listeners, for joining us again, and thank also our partners, the Family Business Office, the MBR, and the Commerce Department for their support in our work. Continue following our socials, seeing the work we do in financial literacy, entrepreneurship, and work readiness at JA, and see you next time.